Reaching room 46 in BluePrince left me with questions and a long list of things I haven't even done yet. So this is my first update into things I have achieved since then. I've been using the King's power set to green rooms as it lets me earn gems with the room synergy. And I'm trying to use the Conservatory to adjust the rarity of some rooms I really want to be able to access more. The Conservatory itself has a note about some special room placement rules, including for the Conservatory itself, which can only be placed in corners. It also mentions Her Ladyship's chamber can only be drafted in the west wing and only from south-facing doors, while the master bedroom will appear only in the east wing. The Conservatory has a black rook chess piece, in case you're looking for more of these. As for the room function itself, each day you draft it, you get a choice of 3 random rooms, and you get to change their rarity permanently. However, you will have to come through here multiple times in order to be changed the specific rooms you want. I really want to be able to make my workshop appear more often. I have updated my guest bedroom into a Geist bedroom, which now gives me 2 dice by default, and if I have a tomb on a given day, it will give me additional 4 dice. I think having good rerolls is important for late gameplay. I also have my upgraded goldfish aquarium, which now gives me 10 gold every time I visit, and I have pumped out the water out of the room to see what that will achieve. We already know that each of the tanks kind of represents a room of a different color, and it turns out there are clues inside some of those areas. There's an arrow pointing at a cabinet in what appears to be the archive room. One of the tanks represents the bedroom, but currently I'm not seeing any hints to anything in it. Tank representing the patio shows an X in front of the barbecue. There appears to be nothing significant in the hallway-looking tank, but the laundry tank has another X in front of one of the washing machines. I think we can assume X's mean dig here, as an X marks the spot, so next time we see those rooms, we should definitely check out that theory. I've also finally drafted the tunnel. It's a room I've seen in the demo, and the special property of it that when you draft from it, you will get another tunnel, so that you can make basically a long chain of rooms going all the way across the house. I think it can only be placed north or south facing, but yes, it means you can make it through the ranks if you need to do so quickly. I've only had to place 2 chains, but another property of the tunnel is that if you reach the end of it, going towards the boundary of the house, there is a reward there. On the north edge specifically, there is an allowance box waiting for us. This one with orange boxes that need to be moved into corners to activate. Now, one of the things to also know about those allowance boxes is that the symbols in the corners represent the various realms we've been learning about, and the colors used to activate them seem to correspond to the color of each realm. So it is an information you should note for yourself as you go through and see the different variations of the boxes. Especially that once you've solved them, you will not see them anymore. You should also be noting the behavior of buttons of different colors, as it's also significant for later. In this run I also draft the laundry, so I'm able to check out the first of the digging spots I've mentioned in the aquarium. And we find a file cabinet key, likely opens up a drawer somewhere in the estate. Well, the arrow was pointing to a cabinet from the archive, so I think that's where the key may fit. We just have to find the archives while we have it in our possession. I have an electromagnet stashed in my coat check. As you may remember, electromagnet is one of the contraptions you can craft in the workshop, and it both make the mechanical rooms more likely to appear in your drafts, and also collects the metal items that are found in the rooms. Having the item lets me draft the boiler room quite easily. I've also learned in one of the drafting guides that having the door already powered makes it more likely for rooms that carry or require power to appear. In this case, I get lucky and the archives are here. I never thought I would be happy about the archives. The cabinet is right there in the middle of the room, and we can use the key we found to open one of the drawers. It's another album with cutouts of articles. Peace. Terms of surrender have been accepted. The red flags flying over the capital was a bittersweet sight of comfort for many of this realm war-weary citizens. After 22 years, peace had come at last. We, the staff of Reddington Herald, join all of the citizens of Reddington in welcoming this new era of peace and formally retract and disavow all prior printed support of House Desolates. Royals flee in defeat. For shame, all you cowardly coattails, in our most trying hour we clung, and in yours you run. In his first public address since the end of war, the victorious leader of the Fen army, General Teskin, did not express much sympathy for his fallen enemy. The royal family's departure was not unexpected, as rumors of their plans to flee to the neighboring realm of Erijah had been circulating even before war's end. However, the suddenness of their departure has left many of their supporters feeling abandoned. It is a disgrace, a betrayal of the people they swore to protect. They have fled to the foreign lands, seeking comfort and refuge while their people suffer and struggle to rebuild. This is not the kind of leadership we need. We need leaders who will stand with us in times of adversity, will not abandon us when we are afraid at our most vulnerable. Desolate's princess born in exile. In the 4 decades since the end of the war, little news has reached our new desk regarding the former royals, whose life in exile has remained a quiet source of speculation and mystery. Prince Rolf, the grandson of Desolate's IV, broke that silence on Tuesday when he announced the birth of his daughter, the Princess Caitlin Jari, who, in keeping with Erijan tradition, was endowed with her mother's surnames. Close supporters of the exiled family are of course concerned that this public announcement displays a notable shift in conduct for the royals and set the stage for the family to exit private life and return once again to public sphere, a change that would undoubtedly stir up long-buried allegiances and unrest in our realm. January 11, 1929. Tensions rise on the southern border. The Crown's recent decision to dismantle the realm's remaining railways has caused increasing tensions with our southern neighbor Erijah, who has for many generations relied on our realm's rail tracks for northern passage to Orinda Aries. The ensuing round of trade negotiations with Erijah, which were conducted with reckless care and little diplomacy, have, to the surprise of no one, ended in an impasse. Early reports have alluded that in addition to their own demands, the Crown had requested that the asylum granted to the former House of Desolates be revoked. And at the end there is also one of those symbols which is related to the various realm sigils we've previously been reading about, so we will need to note this clue for use later. I'm able to carry the power from the boiler room using other places such as the dark room. But it cost me quite a few steps to be able to turn the back on. In a dead end, I placed an observatory. And apparently today is the day I've achieved 20 stars. And the constellation is the Florealis bloom of the sky. Green rooms are more likely to contain special flowers today. One of my main objectives for using power now is being able to take it to the pump room, because there's still something we can do with the power in place there. So I do decide to pick the weight room purely to be able to have a chance at that, even though it costs me half my steps. But my house doesn't have much space to explore, so I assume that will be fine. My first draft room here unfortunately doesn't have any power rooms, but I picked the cloister. It's free due to room synergy, and I get to see the effect of the new constellation, where now the flowers we have previously seen growing in the green room are also available in the cloister, and they allow us to collect extra gems. Since I've been running with the electromagnet, I have a few rooms with the mechanical symbols, so I select the Mechanarium to see what that does. I'm particularly interested in the fact that in such situation it has doors facing diagonally. They do not lead to any rooms, but instead we're given additional rewards, like an upgrade disc. There is a secondary lever for the antechamber that doubles up for the same door we would normally unlock through the secret garden. I get the silver key, which is nothing special, but extra items are nothing to be upset about. And in the last of the corner doors, I am giving a sanctum key. Now, the area where we unlock access to room 46 is called the inner sanctum, and there are doors there that we couldn't previously interact with, but those keys might be something to do with that. Unfortunately, with how few steps I have remaining today, we may not be able to immediately confirm that. The pump room appears, but in a position where the power is not available, so I actually decided to skip it in hopes of redrafting it again from a better position. Aquarium also gets a gem flower, since it is a room of every color. From my final powered door, I indeed get the pump room. When the pump room is powered, an additional control is available, which lets us drain the contents of tank 1 into the separate container in the corner, which means we get to basically remove an amount of water from the system, and it makes moving it around easier, but also means we can drain the reservoir fully, as normally there's not enough space for the water to fit in other places. The changes made in the pump room are permanently applied to the house and the estate, so while we will not be able to visit the reservoir today, having it empty will just carry on to following days, and we can see what that unlocks next time. With only 8 steps remaining, I'm unfortunately unable to even use that sanctum key or the upgrade disc I found. I can't even reach the code check to stash any of those things, and just have to call it a day and come back to it next time. Moving on to day 30, I'm able to open up the antechamber and then make my way to the inside of it. This finally gives me the basement key again, and now I know I need to use it inside of the foundation in order to be able to access the underground area from yet another place, which I hope will make some of those journeys faster and cost us less steps. But before we get to that, I visit the showroom again, and I'm able to purchase a moon pendant, which lets us carry over 2 items in our inventory into the next day, but the items are randomly selected, so we won't be able to control which ones we keep. To a degree, right? Because you could do things like go to a trading post and trade off all of the items you don't want to keep. Finally, going down in the foundation and opening up that basement door that I've had available for quite a few days now, but haven't been able to see what is on the other side. Here we access the actual basement, which is filled up with boxes and other pieces of furniture, some statues and various other things. We have to complete a puzzle here, moving various dollies full of boxes around in order to unlock access, both on the ground level and to allow us to move across the top of the boxes to reach certain places. I remember from exploring the other areas underground, there was a map pointing out a buried floor plan in the basement, and indeed I'm able to uncover the lost and found red room and add it to my draft book. From here I can start solving the puzzle in the room. It seems like you basically have to work from the back of the room from where you entered, and you can easily see where you need to place the boxes by just seeing at where the gaps are, and the boxes only move back and forth, and then you can adjust their heights, which means it's fairly easy to find where the box is that you need to move into place in order to plug a specific gap in your path. So hopefully it shouldn't be too much of a challenge for anyone to get through this room. Before we reach the end of the puzzle, there is a little side area where there's a paper on the desk mentioning that each door and the antechamber is unlocked with a lever and where those levers are placed. It also mentions the secret backup lever, which we just found in the Mechanarium. So that's all of the locations in case you haven't found them yet. There's also this little card up for the 100 bells, which I'm pretty sure is the tea shop our mother visited just before disappearing. From here it's only a few more boxes to move around to form a path to the button at the end of the box path. Now we're able to reach this button, placed quite high up in the room. Not sure how they were planning for people to use it normally. But anyway, this moves the bookcase that was in the way here, and it gives us an access to the entrance, like next to the spinning gear bridge, which means, yeah, it removes a lot of steps required in order to get down here, where previously we would have to go all the way outside, use the elevator, and go through there. So that should help us quite a bit, and especially because this one is a permanent upgrade. In the inner sanctum, we're able to pull down the lever for room 46 access, but before we go there, I revisit the reservoir, which is now empty, and as we can see, it's now filled with boxes that were previously just barely visible at the bottom of the water. So I head down, and I actually have quite a few keys, so can explore those. Opening the boxes, it seems there are memos with various messages suggesting various things are lies or giving us information about where to find something in those boxes. But some of the clues are, the clues near this clue are lying or other things like that. So you may be reading one clue that tells you something is in that box, but then it turns out that what that box saying was a lie. However, if you just have a lot of keys, you can brute force the solution to this. In the box along the back, I find a sanctum key with a helpful note that it was indeed in that box. With some more browsing and reading various confusing hints, I also locate a box with free allowance tokens that some of the other boxes were hinting at the fact that you can't find allowance tokens here. So the sanctum key was not the only reward, which brings our total allowance up to 33. However, that's not everything to do in this area, because there's also this pipe in the wall, which I think is accessible if we put the water at a specific height, but first we're gonna also have to bring the boat down to this side. Now that I have a sanctum key, I approach one of the doors, and indeed we can use it to unlock the door. Here we finally get into why do we need to know about the various sigils of the realms, because there's a whole puzzle where we need to create them in those rooms. With there being 8 doors, it's quite clearly going to be all the 8 realms. We need to know each of them. The device here lets us select different layers to control. So before we get into this, I did purchase the Realm and Rune book from the bookshop, and I had it available in my library in order to be able to read it. We saw a partially destroyed copy of this book before in one of the underground rooms. So this one will just give you all of the missing information about it. The introduction basically talks about how the sigils were formed, and inside we can see that each sigil has a core, the dividing lines, the moats, and the border, and each will have a unique sigil in the end. The core represents a specific kingdom, so here it gives us a name of some of those. However, again, this is only 5 symbols, and we know about 8 doors, so some of them we're gonna have to learn about. The kingdoms here are Orinda Aries, Fen Aries, Erija, Korarika, and Arch Aries. Fen Aries is where we are right now, and Orinda Aries, from what I've gathered from reading the history book, is the kingdom that was here before, and that's where that royal family was from. And then Fen Aries is what formed after the war, or like taken over the land after the war. Erija was also mentioned just in that newspaper clippings we were reading about, so that's one of the neighboring kingdoms. The rays in the sigil signify what mode of transportation given realm uses. The possible dividing lines configurations are naval transport, roads, streets and carriages, horseback train system, aviation, camels, and turtleback travel. So that's an interesting one. And each of those options has a corresponding ray configuration. Next, we have the weather. This will be represented by the style of the rays that are placed based on the transportation mode. So we have no unusual weather, foggy weather, hot weather, rainy weather, stormy weather, snow, and windy weather. Each of those is quite distinct, so should be quite easy to recognize. But once again, we will need to know more about the area in order to be able to figure out which ray to use. Another element is the modes, which are the little symbols that appear around the central area of the sigil. This represents the type of society in a given realm. Here we can select from tribal, agricultural, martial, metropolitan, academic, industrial, spiritual, and poetic. Again, we've seen some of those symbols on various little hints and clues around the house. So we should definitely look out for them and make sure we're taking notes as we see things. And finally, the border. This one represents the color linked to each realm. Options here are black, violet, green, orange, red, pink, yellow, and white, which is also the colors we've been seeing used on those allowance boxes alongside the symbols, as I mentioned. So that's one of the ways we can learn how each of the realms is matched with a color. At the end, we're given an example for Fen Airs, which is the kingdom we are in now, which is characterized by having road and carriage transportation, foggy weather, militaristic society, and their color is red. Back to the sigil in front of us. This is actually the symbol for Elijah, as we saw in that book. And in the archives, when we opened that drawer, that was the picture at the back of that album, where it was showing us the weather was rain and the society was poetic. So that's little flowers around the circle. We don't have direct mention of what transportation they use. However, in one of the articles it says that they were upset about the fact that this realm was dismantling the train transportation. So I think it might be that they also have trains, and so the interruption of the train travel is why they're upset here. As for color, I have previously visited her ladyship chamber, where we also see the symbol for Elijah as part of her wings, which I think just implies that she or her family were from that realm. And the room is fairly purple because it's a bedroom, but also I think the room is purple because it's the color of the realm, as she also has a purple flag in the room. So that's what I taken from it, and that tells us what border to use on this sigil. The mechanism here is simply clicking on the various wheels in order to change the represented value. However, the wheel controlling the mode of transportation also changes the border controlling the color, which I think is purely mechanic to stop you brute forcing the answers, since trying to try each of the options with each of the border is gonna be quite hard if the things keep changing every time you move it. You're also required to press the central button to confirm your answer, so that you accidentally can't just have the answer lock itself in while you're swapping between the elements. Upon completing the sigil, a bridge is unlocked and we're able to proceed further into the room. On one of the sides we find another one of those allowance boxes. This one actually comes with an extra instruction telling us about the Mora Jai boxes, which are what they are called, and the certain properties they have. In this case we learned that the violet tiles, when pressed, move south on the box. As for the box solution, we have the 4 purple tiles which we need to move to the corners to activate the symbols, and other than that we have yellow boxes, a red box and a green box. The red boxes, when pressed, they fill any black spaces with red, which I think in this case means we do not ever want to touch the red box. The green boxes swap position with the opposite box, like based on the center tile. The black box moves the whole row it's in along, basically letting us horizontally change position of the elements. So with that information in hand, we basically have to very carefully use the black and green boxes to get the purple ones into position, because the purple boxes themselves will only always want to move down, so we have to somehow figure out a way to move 2 of them all the way to the top row corners. This takes a bit of back and forth trying to figure it out, but I eventually managed to get it unlocked. That's another 2 coins added into our allowance. On the other side of the room we have some items and a painting that I assume are related to this realm. Should probably take a note of it because there will probably be even more stuff we have to do with this information. There's a postcard. I was a little disappointed that there has not been a drop of rain during my time here, as every Eridian story I have ever heard has begun with rain. I suppose the anecdotes I make on this trip will have to do without that flavorful setting. However, even without the rain, the puddles and ponds that dot the countryside make this place feel different than home. Lorja, Jenna, Ijor, Loon. That's more of weird sign-offs, because there was another one in the letter we got after we reached room 46, so I do wonder if they mean anything. And that's it here for now, because who knows, there might be some more crazy secrets we have to get into. After this, I go back to room 46. And this time, we don't get credits, we can actually explore, and there is a crown of BluePrince in here. The former ruby crown of Orinda Aries, recently set with freshly cut sapphires. The first time you draw a red room while drafting, you may remove it from today's draft pool. If you do, you gain 1 gem and redraw floor plans. So that's an interesting new mechanic, but also interesting item to get while you've basically finished drafting your house. There is another sanctum key and a clue. The first key found here on the furthest rank, the second locked tight in the vault of a bank, the third is high up among all the clocks, and the 4th down below, beneath all the docks. The 5th key is held by a king of his throne, the 6th in a station left by one of your own. The 7th is a major if you drafted quite late, and the last key is waiting behind the last door of fate. So obviously we have the first key, we just found it here. The 4th one is the one we got from the reservoir bottom, and the last one is I think the one we got from the Mechanarium that I will have to get again. But yes, the other clues we will need to solve, like some of them were quite direct, some of them not so much. We have a missing statue which is titled Marigold, so I assume that's for a mother, and we have a map titled 8 realms and 8 months. So now I'm thinking, with the postcard we saw in that room, and the fact there's a map, and there's 8 doors, 8 realms, and this text, that we will have to actually track the order our uncle has visited the different realms in, and we'll have to know where they are on the map. So this game just has never-ending puzzles. I randomly placed that 4 over there, even though I'm pretty sure it's not gonna be as easy as the order of the doors or the order of the lands, so this was just me seeing how the actual item works. I think we will have to get back to it once we've unlocked all of the rooms in the inner sanctum and solved the puzzles, because before that we won't have enough information. In the room, there is also a statue of us, Simon P. Jones. There are some clocks stuck on specific times, and statues of our grandparents, Sinclair and Epson. And we have symbols for each of the 8 realms above the fireplace. Now we just have to link them to all of the other information and figure out how to make each of the sigils after we found each of the keys and opened each of the door in the sanctum. In the desk drawer, there's also a blackmail letter. The secret room is not as secure as you thought. We have your letters, 8 payments, 100 gold, instructions to follow. Which is, I assume, is related to the letter we then find in the office about blackmailers trying to explain themselves to our uncle and, about what their motivations are. I wonder if we will learn more about this too. So yeah, this is interesting because it kind of feels like we want to be getting into this room early on so that we can get the crown and then utilize it, or of course, if we have means to stash it. But now we have another sanctum key, so time to try our hand at another realm and see if we have enough information to figure out this one. This symbol here is the symbol of Orinda Aries, because that was also in the book. And we actually have quite a bit of information about this one, because this is the realm that was where we are now, called Fen Airs, that basically lost the war and was replaced by Fen Airs, which gives us quite a bit of info already, because we know this realm's color was black, because that's mentioned in some clues. We know that the weather was the same as Fen Airs, which was given to us. The letter was foggy. The transportation was the rail system that then Fen Airs was dismantling. And I have a note that said that this was a metropolitan society, but I cannot find where I got this. I may have gotten this somewhere in the live stream, but there is 18 hours of footage just there, so I can't quite recall. But that means this sigil is easier to put together than the Elijah was at the time. And we get a box where we get the explanation for the black tiles, which we kind of already know by doing other boxes, where yes, it shifts the whole row into the right specifically. Here we also get a postcard from our uncle's travel, and this one explains a bit more. 8 realms in 8 months. The objective was simple enough, but in what order, what route, and where to start? Questions like these are the ones I tend to ignore, as planning has never been my strong suit. In the true spirit of adventure, I have departed, forsaking both map and plan, and as it happens, the road has taken me south. It seems fitting to begin the journey by visiting a fragment of the Old Kingdom. A landmark as black in realm as it is in name, and a story I feel closely connected to. Yeah, so that explains a little bit more his whole objective of this journey, and that, yeah, some remnant of Orinda Airs was what he visited first. But again, we'll need more of the postcards to trace the whole route, and then back to actually solving the box. The 4 black tiles that we need to move to the corners, and we get green tiles which let us basically swap with the mirroring tile. Since the black tiles can only move to the right, the green tiles will be the important element to get them moved across the rows and into the positions they need to be in. The yellow box also just moves north when it's pressed, so it can be used to push things down. This puzzle seems simpler than the Elijah one, so once we understand what each of the pieces does, we can swap things around fairly quickly. From here, unfortunately, we don't have any more steps, so we will need to end this day and next time set off an adventure to get more of the sanctum keys, get more information, I think at some point we will get blocked by needing the uncensored history book. And of course there could be so much more hidden around the house. So I've barely scratched the surface of my long list of things to do. It actually added extra things to my list, so we will have to pick this up again in another update video once I have more things figured out. If you enjoy my content, consider liking and subscribing, and I will see you soon on another adventure.